Okay, so episode 1 of Blackheart Paladin. Once again, my name is Ryan, and this episode is going to be about depression. I planned on doing this episode much further in, but as I mentioned in the intro, um, unfortunately, I just went into a depression stage myself. Um, Initially, I was gonna wait for that to pass so that I felt like I could be in the best mindset I could be for this, since this is my first podcast channel, and just wanted to get all the kinks out and all that. But as I was deciding that, or waiting for that to pass, I guess I should say, I decided that what's the best way for me to talk about this, and the fact that I'm going through it right now seemed like it would be the best time to do it. It definitely puts me in the mindset, so I'm not trying to talk about it from experience. I'm talking about it because of the things that are going on right now at this moment. Um, so this is, let's see, so day 4 of the current depression stage. I actually haven't had one in a while. I'm not even sure the last one I had, maybe a month ago, probably longer than that. This is definitely the worst one I've had in a while, enough that um, this is one that it's actually getting me to the point where I don't want to do things, where my interests are gone. I've been trying all the usual outlets for myself when I start to feel even mildly depressed. Watching movies, TV shows, trying to play video games, reading a book, trying to write, creating anything. Normally, being creative is very helpful. So, I'm also kind of hoping that doing this podcast will, uh, if I'm lucky, help get me out of this a little faster. So, kind of jumping right into this, the main thing for this, once again, again going back to the intro episode, is that the main reason that I'm doing these, especially the podcasts like this one where I'm talking about depression, that's something that affects thousands, probably millions of people. I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but um, this is something that I feel people just don't talk about it. They talk about it with their therapist, but most people that I know, they might say, "Oh, I'm feeling depressed," but that's it. They don't go into it, and because it's a very personal thing, it's something you feel very vulnerable. You feel like people are just, you feel like you're just wide open to everything and anything, especially in this day and age with the way that people are very judgmental and criticize, and um, just all the things that are going on in America and in the world today. So, to be depressed is just a very, you're just a very raw, very, you're very emotional. You have emotions just going every which way. You don't really have a good way to process them, it seems. Um, it's just a very strange thing, and I feel like a lot of people struggle with it, and a lot of people don't talk about it. They don't discuss these things with their family or friends. I mean, I hope they do. I really do. But in my experience, it seems that most people don't. They want to. Try and stand strong on their own, and if you can do that, that's great. I definitely applaud you. That's something that I definitely try to do myself. I still try to do it, even knowing all the signs and symptoms. And with this, so depression all stems from my PTSD, or at least that seems to be. I assume that's when it started. Is once I got back from Iraq and the war and all that. So I've been dealing with depression for about the last 10 years. Um, and just more recently, within the last year or two, that I've felt more inclined to talk about it, and that I feel more comfortable. I've always tried to stay very open about what's going on with me because I feel like it helps, but more recently, that I really feel like, no, this needs to get out there. And again, I really hope that it helps people see that, other people are going through this, maybe give you some insight into things that, what's going on with me personally. And maybe I'll say something that'll help you, maybe I won't. Maybe it'll, you'll think, yeah, this guy's full of it, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And that very, very well may be, depending on what levels of it you're dealing with. All I can talk about is my own experiences. So with that, I'll kind of go into what's been going on with me here recently, and then maybe I can throw in some past issues as well. I'll probably get into more specifics throughout later episodes, later podcasts, but I feel like just talking about what's going on now will, really point out exactly what it can feel like. And if you're somebody that doesn't have depression, has never had to deal with depression, this may all sound very, very alien to you. It may just sound like, what the hell is this guy talking about? I don't feel like that. I don't know anybody that feels like that. And if you don't, that's great. Again, I wouldn't wish this on anyone. It really is a horrible thing to have to go through. And luckily, the fact that I'm even able to talk about it now, I really do put to the fact that I've been dealing with it for so long that I've gotten to that point. And I don't know if I would have ever gotten to this point if I wasn't open about it and talking to people about it, and really recognizing and challenging myself too. That's a big one. You really have to challenge when these things happen. What I mean by challenging is you have to force yourself to do the things that you don't want to, because you might regret it after the fact. And what I'm talking about with that perfect example right now. So I've taken a couple days off of work to have kind of a mini vacation with my wife. And we went out to the Anderson Japanese Gardens in Rockford, Illinois. That's where I'm originally from. My wife had never been there, so she wanted to go and see them, and we decided to go out there. Now, with my depression in full swing like it is, that definitely something I did not want to do. I felt like I just want to sit at home and not do anything and lay on the couch or the recliner or whatever. I don't even want to get out of bed. I don't want to do anything, really. But over the years, I've realized that when you start not doing the things that you had planned or the things that you would have normally done, that's when it really starts to get hard to get out of that zone. And even when you do come out of it later on, you might regret the fact that you didn't go and do those things. And I feel like this was definitely one of those moments. With that was so we went to the Anderson Gardens. We looked and saw, for anybody that doesn't know, they're Japanese gardens. They have a lot of very beautiful foliage, little ponds with koi fish in it, some structures, and some traditional Japanese buildings, just to kind of give you a feel for it. And just beautiful scenery and all around. And so we went there, and my wife asked me while we were there, or maybe after we left, she's like, "Oh, was this fun?" And I said, "Oh yeah, of course it was." And at the time I didn't think anything of that. And then just today, actually, I realized, I was thinking back on it, and I realized that, holy shit, that was my auto response. When you've been dealing with depression for so long, you get into this mode where you don't want to bring other people down. You definitely don't want to bring your family members or your friends down. You don't want to be just that person that's always always in the dumps and all that. So you get trained, and you go into this auto mode where, when people ask you stuff like that, where, "Oh, you have fun?" "Of course I did. It's a fun time." When in reality, no, I didn't. And when I realized that, where I just kind of said, "Holy shit," I just gave my wife the auto response because she asked me, and that was just it. Today, once I realized that, I knew that I had to talk to her about that. It's something that we will discuss here and there, but this was just one. I felt really compelled that she deserved the truth of it, and I did let her know that in reality it wasn't fun for me. I'm depressed right now. It's not fun. Luckily, there was a moment um, of joy to it. Where my wife was. They give you little bags of koi food, and my wife was feeding the koi fish, and She eventually started having them eat the food right out of her hands, and just that they were coming up and basically um, just eating the koi food right off her hand, and she was giggling and laughing about it. And that's one of those moments that if I hadn't been there or we hadn't gone because I was feeling depressed, then I would have missed that moment. And that, I feel, it was one of those moments where I wouldn't have wanted to miss it. I'm very happy that I got to experience that, and that's what I'm talking about when I say, you have to force yourself into those situations, even though you don't want to go. It seems very consuming, and just really a really hard thing to do in the moment. And I totally understand if your depression is new to you, and you're not to that point where you can force yourself to do those things. It's completely understandable. I believe me, I definitely understand. I would not have been able to do that. I didn't do that when I was first dealing with it. When it was all first coming around, I can't even say for how long. Easily the first 5 years of it. If I ever went into one of these depression stages, I was down for the count. I mean, it was just nope, not doing anything. I'm gonna sit at home and not do a damn thing. And luckily, I finally did get to those points where I figured out that I do need to do these things. So that's just one of the instances. Now, for me personally, I've been doing kind of a lot of inner soul searching, if that's what you want to call it. I'm trying to figure out what caused the depression this time. It's something that sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It can be just random things that you never even realize. You just kind of go, boom, you're off and you're in that stage. And but one thing, I always try to figure it out, because it might not help me get out of it sooner, but it definitely it, I don't know, it just makes me feel better. I'm sure anybody else that's dealt with it makes them feel better too. So I was trying to think of what it was, and I think some of it, what originally it was honestly trying to start this podcast. And it's kind of funny that would be the thing that had a part in it, but it wasn't just the podcast. So it was also the fact that I realized I've been getting really down on myself, because I feel like I'm just not helping enough people. Again, I was a medic in the Army, because I wanted to save people. I wanted to help people that wouldn't be able to help themselves. Once I got out of the Army, I did need a break from people, but then I became a vet tech. I went because I wanted to help animals. I've always had pets. I've always really liked animals, and so again, I wanted to help. From there, I went into a medical office, and at the medical office, again, helping people, I felt like I just wasn't helping people on the stage that I really was looking for. And now currently I work at a wood shop, working with adults with disabilities, mental and physical, because I felt like, here's people that really, it's really hard for them to help themselves, or maybe not so hard, but they need a little extra help. So that's where I'm at now. And I think that this depression came about because I just started looking at it, and I felt like, this is where I'm at, and I know I'm doing good things, but I just feel like I'm not helping enough people. And how much is enough, I really don't know. Unfortunately, it's probably some unattainable goal, like, oh, I haven't helped the entire world yet, so I'm depressed about that. And it may be that. Hopefully, it's not, but it's come down to that. I feel like there's something wrong with me, that I'm not good enough, that I haven't prepared myself. I haven't prepared myself to the point that I can help people on a grander scale. And I really do want to help as many people as possible. It's just the type of person I am. I feel like when people are in need, I do want to help them. I really have gotten to the point where I don't help myself. I'm not I don't really take care of myself, because when I look at it, and this kind of goes back to the PTSD as well, but I'm insignificant. I don't matter. And that's the way I look at it. I know that's probably not a healthy way to look at it. I would hate for other people to feel that way. And the way that I look at it is that I am broken. There's something wrong with me, but that doesn't have to be the reality for everyone else. So I'm going to do everything in my power to try and help the people that may feel that way to not feel that way, to get out of that thought process. And again, it's kind of weird, people might say, want look at yourself and take your own advice, and they'd be totally right in doing that. That's just where I've gotten, is that I care more about helping others than helping myself, and maybe that's the better way to put it, honestly. um, because I don't want people to watch these podcasts and really, I don't want, I would hope that people don't attach themselves to the negative stuff that I may feel about myself. I'm really hoping that these are more inspirational and more helpful to people. But anyway, so that, and that's where I was looking at it, that I'm not doing enough. I can't do enough. And then from there, I start to get in what I call the spiral. You get in that downward spiral. You get the toilet spin. Here, all the shit's going down. And I've talked to other people as well that deal with it, and they have the exact same thing. A good friend of mine, Brian Skoll, he has talked about some of the stuff that he has gone through. He also has a Facebook channel if you want to check him out. Brian Skoll at YouTube, whatever. Search for Brian Skoll, you'll find him. He's got some podcasts going out where he talks about some of these things. But me and him have been friends for a long time, so we have a weekly call. We talk to each other every single Thursday. It started just kind of saying hey to each other, but we both know that we've kind of got our inner demons and things to talk about. And so we're there for each other. It's a support structure that we have and need, and I'll kind of talk about that a little bit more. But back to that spiral. So once you get into this spiral, your thoughts, they start going everywhere, and they don't make sense all the times. Most of the time they don't. Another one that kind of added on to me was, we were talking about the death of Chester Bennington, the lead singer for Linkin Park, for anybody that doesn't know. And kind of how that really sucked, because he had a big part in our lives growing up. We listened to him in high school and all this stuff, and that got me thinking to Robin Williams. Most of the time, I'm the person that, if a celebrity or somebody dies, it's kind of like, well, I didn't know them. I understand that it's sad for their family and their friends and that, but altogether, it doesn't really affect me. But with Robin Williams, for instance, it did affect me. It made me extremely sad, because this was a person that I grew up with, watching his movies, and I always laughed at them. They made me feel better. So he had a role in my childhood, and that did make me sad. Somebody that had brought so much joy to my life, and I'm sure to thousands of millions of others, that that he was gone and he had died. And especially when it came to suicide. So that really affected me. So now, with everything going on now, I just recently watched the video of Jim Carey, and he was doing his painting and talking about how he was depressed. I believe he was depressed after him and Jenny McCarthy got divorced. And I found myself thinking, still thinking right now, like, I'm really worried about Jim Carey right now. And if this happens to get to him in some way or somehow, I would definitely talk to him to say, let him know that people care about him, and that, things, that he's brought a lot of joy to people. And yeah, if somehow gets to Jim Carey, he can go ahead and get a hold of me. I do not care. But it's just like right now, I'm extremely worried about Jim Carrey. Might not be anything to it, but again, like I said, this is another actor that, a comedian that brought a lot of joy to my life growing up, watching his movies, and it really just saddens me to think, if something like that would happen. I would really hope that he would never take his own life, and that he would look out and try and get the help that he needs. Whether it's just talking to friends and family, or actually talking to professionals, or whatever it may be, just somebody. And so that was another part of it, and it spirals so out of control. You start getting into the I guess just the grandiose. Again, these thoughts, once you get in that spiral, they get so big, way bigger than you could even think of. I start, thinking of how we're in this huge universe, and all these things, and that I'm just one person on a planet, and got an entire universe and galaxy and all that. Sorry, I rambled a little bit there. Just need one sec. Need a drink here. So that's where your thoughts can really just run away from you, and unfortunately, once you get into that spiral, it's hard to get out of it. Most people don't even realize they're in it. Luckily, again, with me dealing with it so long, I do realize what's going on. I realize I'm in that spiral, and it's kind of, no, you're going to go further down that rabbit hole. You need to stop thinking this, but it's not that easy. You can't just turn the switch off and say, nope, not going to have those thoughts anymore. That's why again, mental health. It's a real bitch of things to deal with. And along with the depression, then with me personally, with the depression comes the anger that goes along with it. I get mad at myself that I'm actually feeling like this. I want to be by myself because I don't want that anger to boil over, and for me to lash out at somebody that I don't want to. That's another perfect example with my wife today in the car. I'm not even sure what I was thinking about anymore, but she had looked over me at one point, and she just asked me, did I say something wrong? And I told her, of course not, no. But clearly, whatever I was thinking about, it was obviously showing on my face. I must have looked like I was upset or something. I don't know. But just like that, I hate the fact that she even would have to ask that question, that she feels that she did something to make me mad, when it's just me being in my own head. And that's just one of those things. I never want any of this stuff to kind of be the boiling over where I would yell at my wife, or say something or whatever it may be, just to make her feel bad. Another good example was today. I happened to go to the post office. I don't recommend that when you're in one of these depression stages. And this was even such a stupid thing to happen. But again, it kind of shows you what is happening with this stuff. I had gone in there, and I was mailing a package to a friend, and I hadn't written the address on there yet. And when I brought it up to this girl, she asked me if I had, and I said, well, no, I was going to write it on one of the slips that they had up there. And she said, oh, we just do the receipt, whatever. So being very nice, she wasn't being mean, she wasn't being short or anything with me. So she even offered, she said, well, here, you can take my marker, just, make sure you bring it back, and you can write it down real quick, and then we'll get you all taken care of. And for whatever reason, the fact that it was going to take longer really pissed me off in that moment. And luckily I didn't say anything to her, because again, she was being completely helpful. She was being very nice. But in that moment, I was just so upset by the fact that it was going to take longer. And those thoughts were there, that I wanted to yell. I wanted to be pissed off, because now it's taking longer for something that I wanted to be in and out for. And again, it's just, I would have felt horrible. I'm so happy that I didn't actually get mad or lash out or anything like that, but I would have felt really horrible if I had yelled, especially since she was being completely nice. Not all the time are postal workers are not always the nicest to you when you come in. I'm sure they're having a long day and all that, and but she was being great. So just another thing as to like I said, stuff that's going on right now. And I'm sure a lot of people have felt this way. These are thoughts that they have. Maybe not the exact same thoughts. I doubt everybody out there is, extremely worried about Jim Carrey at this moment, but that's just one of the things that's in my head. And again, maybe that's because my depression does come from the fact that, yeah, I feel like I can't help enough people. I really want to help people. Hence this podcast. So that's what, again, hopefully this is a kind of a 2-for-1 for me, that I get to do something creative, and the fact that hopefully it reaches people and it helps them. Going through, so that's kind of what's going on with me now, but I guess to get into more of the depression stuff throughout, what's gone on with me in the past. And again, whether this is for you or this is for a family member, you just have to realize it will go away. I do promise that. It may not be as fast as you want it to. I've had these stages last for a couple days, which as always feels like such a great relief when it's only a couple days. I've had them last weeks. They used to last months at a time. And I do mean that, months, not one, but like 2-3 months at a time before I would come out of it. And it's really not easy to get through. Trust me, I know. And you just need to know that there are people out there that want to help you, and it's really hard to let them do that. I do understand, but you really, as best you can, find someone that you do trust or that you want there to help you with these things. Hopefully someone that understands what's going on, so that they can, that maybe they can deal with it if you do happen to lash out at them because you are depressed and you're angry about it. That's another point that I should bring up, that I'm lucky in the fact that I have a very good support structure through my family. I have a very close family, which luckily I have them to fall back on, but also my group of friends, which we've been friends for a very long time, and we all lean on each other. And like I said, with my friend Brian, we talk to each other every Thursday for that exact reason. We're not both, very rarely are we actually going through a depressive stage, but it's just nice to know we have that structure already set up into place for when we are. Most times we're just talking about, usual stuff that friends talk about, hey, that last Game of Thrones episode, or, oh yeah, did you catch the new episode of Rick and Morty? And, those are the things that we normally talk about. But today, for example, I let him know and just said, hey, I'm having a really tough time of it. And right away, of course, he, being the friend that he is, said, hey, well, you want to talk right now? And that wasn't at the usual time again, but we did talk eventually, and as usual, it did feel better. And he told me all the stuff that that I know and he knows, but it still feels good to hear it from somebody, and just to talk it through. The fact that you guys can I should say, can sit there and talk those things out, it really does help. But with the depression, it's just the thoughts, the things that come up with that. It's just not one all-encompassing thing, and it's usually different. It's always different, which always makes it more confusing, because you can't come up with just one specific, oh well, if A happens, then do plan B. If C happens, do plan A. It's never that easy. Unfortunately, I really wish it was. And if stuff is starting to happen like that, if you can do it on your own, that's great. It really is, if you can. Some people are able to do that, but at some point, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to seek out therapists or psychiatrists, whoever you need to talk to. And some of the things that help me, like I said, normally writing or drawing, or even like just playing video games, those all help. Working out, most people hate to work out, but it really does help. It just helps to get out the anger issues. If you have a punching bag, or even if you don't, just doing push-ups. If you don't have any gym equipment in your house, you can do push-ups. Do it. Do push-ups, jumping jacks, go for a run, whatever. Working out really does help. I'm not saying it's going to make it go away, because trust me, I've been working out every day since this has happened, and it's still here, obviously. But it does definitely seem to help, and the so there's just things you have to find to that do seem to help you. Um, and I apologize. I feel like I'm rambling a lot, but again, first podcast, so you guys can definitely let me know and tell me in the comments where I'm screwing up and what you think I need to improve. Um, but yeah, you just you just have to get through those things. Sleep, that's another one that I wanted to definitely talk about. If you're not sleeping good, it's very easy for these things to come in. That was another kind of issue that was happening with me when this first happened. My I hadn't slept good for like the last 3 days in a row before it really hit, and when it hit, I knew it did right away, because I was sitting watching TV, and then all of a sudden it was just like, wow, I don't want to do anything. I'm not really paying attention to what I'm watching. Um, and then, my wife was asking me, hey, do you want to go do this? Do you want to do that? And no, I don't want to do this. No, I don't want to do that. So it's really hard to get through those. Same thing with working out. I say work out, but it's really hard when you're in that mode of I don't want to do anything. I'm not finding any joy in anything, to sit down and just say, nope, I'm going to go do 10 push-ups. I'm going to go do 100 push-ups, whatever it may be that you're going to do. But again, it makes you just not want to do those if you're at that level. The levels aren't always the same. Like I said, I haven't been at this stage in quite a while, so that's why it was making it hard for me to even start this podcast. But again, pushing through it. You got to challenge yourselves. I'm telling you, it really, it does start to make a difference. It's extremely hard in the beginning. I'm not gonna lie to you. It is so hard to do when you haven't done it yet. But the more you do, the easier it gets, and the more that you start recognizing what's happening. Again, it gets easier. I'm not saying that it is easy, but easier than what it was. And you just got to keep up the fight. That's it sounds so cliche to say, but it really is. Just keep on fighting for it and get through it, and it will go away, and hopefully sooner rather than later. So I guess that's what I have to say on it right now. Maybe do a follow up on it if there's more to it. Like I said, I'll go into more of the issues in that later on. Depression is just it's what's going on right now. So hope you guys find this enjoyable, and like I said, anything that you notice that you want me to change, or you just want to say, hey, you suck, you're doing a bad job at this, let me know. Again, it's my first one, so criticism is fine with me. I want to hear it. Hope you guys have a good one.